Two men walk down a dirt road along the eastern bank of the Jordan River, keeping a nervous, hesitant distance behind a rabbi. But that exact phrase is going to become an echo. It is going to be repeated by a newly minted disciple to a hardened. They cross the dirt to see the man for themselves. And 2 days later, they tell the woman that they no longer believe because of her words. They believe because they have heard him with their own ears. The pattern holds. The invitation works. The physical proximity shatters the skepticism of an entire Samaritan village. But this is exactly where we lose the plot. We read these ancient encounters. We see the undeniable power of the pattern. And then we build a modern apologetic system that does the exact opposite. You know the exact feeling. You are sitting across a small, scuffed table in a coffee shop, your hands wrapped tightly around a warm ceramic mug, listening to a friend meticulously dismantle the text you love. Or maybe you are staring at a phone screen at midnight, the harsh blue light reflecting in your eyes, typing out a carefully cited response in a hostile comment section. The air goes thin. Your chest tightens. A family member makes a sarcastic joke at a holiday dinner about the historical contradictions in the Gospels, and your immediate instinct is to build a wall of evidence. You reach for the historical proofs. You reach for the archaeological timelines. You try to construct a fortress of airtight logic that they cannot possibly breach. We have been conditioned to believe that defending God requires a law degree. We carry this crushing, suffocating weight. Sarcastic cynic, sitting under a fig tree. It is going to be shouted by a marginalized woman running into a Samaritan town. We think if someone we love walks away from the faith, it is because we simply did not have the right philosophical argument ready when they ask the hard questions. We read thick volumes of modern apologetics, highlighting the counterpoints, memorizing the rhetorical maneuvers, preparing for a hostile courtroom battle that Jesus himself absolutely refused to fight. We have turned the kingdom into a debate club. But look at the pressure this removes from your shoulders. When Philip faced a cynic who knew the scriptures better than he did not try to out-argue him. When the Samaritan woman faced a town of hostile men who despised her, she did not offer them a systematic theology. They did not have an arsenal of intellectual answers. They had an address. If you are in a season where you are terrified of the questions your children are asking, or the doubts your spouse is raising, the text is offering you a profound exhale. You do not have to have every answer about the Bronze Age. You do not have to perfectly reconcile the synoptic timelines. You do not have to win the debate against the cynic sitting under the fig tree. The gospel is not a fragile theory you have to protect. It is a living reality you simply point toward. Your only job is proximity. Your only defense is the undeniable, unarguable evidence of a life that has been completely altered by the person of Jesus. You invite them into, leaving her heavy ceramic water jar behind in the dirt. It is going to become the central apologetic of the entire early Christian movement. Your home. You break bread with them. You let them see how you suffer, how you forgive, and how you carry hope in the dark. But an obvious problem emerges right here. It is easy to say, "Come and see," when the rabbi is physically standing in the dirt of Dai, 1st century Palestine. But what do you do when the physical body is gone? What happens when the tomb is empty? The cloud has swallowed him, up on the Mount of Olives. And there is no physical rabbi left to point a cynic toward? Sunday morning breaks. The sky is barely turning gray. The women walk toward the graveyard carrying myrrh and aloes, their hands stained with the sharp, bitter scent of burial spices. The ground violently shakes. The Roman guards drop in terror. The heavy, circular stone rolls back. The women step into the burial cave. It is dark. It is cold. The air smells of damp limestone and abandoned linen. And sitting on the stone is an angel, radiating a light so bright it hurts their retinas. The angel does not hand them a scroll of fulfilled prophecies. The angel does not dictate a theological treatise on the mechanics of bodily resurrection. The angel does not give them a multi-layered historical argument to take back to the disciples. The angel points to a flat rock. Same 3 words. Again and again. Most people assume that defending the faith requires an airtight intellectual argument. He is not here, for he has reason, as he said. And then, the angel issues the exact same command. Come, see the place where he lay. In the Greek manuscript of Matthew 28, it is the exact same phrase the Samaritan woman used. Doite idete. Come, see. The defense of the resurrection begins with an empirical challenge. Look at the stone. Touch the folded linen. Smell the damp air. Run your hands over the empty slab. The angel does not ask for blind faith. The angel asks for physical inspection. The ultimate apologetic of the early church is not a philosophical theory. It is a physical absence. The women are sent back to the city, not with a debate to win, but with an encounter to declare. They run back to the upper room. They burst through the heavy wooden doors. They tell the men what they have seen. And what do Peter and John do? They do not sit down to debate the metaphysical possibility of resurrection. They run. John outruns Peter. Peter runs straight into the cave without stopping. They look at the linen strips. They stare at the burial cloth folded neatly by itself. The empirical reality shatters their grief. Because the pattern holds. Even over death. The kingdom is not something you deduce. It is something you collide with. But a folded pile of grave clothes is still just a piece of evidence. We think we need a 5-point philosophical framework, an arsenal of historical proofs, and the ability to win a debate against a skeptic. An empty tomb is an astonishing historical fact. But it is not a breathing person. It is not a rabbi looking at you under a fig tree. When the Christian movement explodes into the Roman Empire decades later, the physical Jesus is gone. The ascension has happened. There is no bodily rabbi walking the dusty roads of Galilee to point a skeptic toward. So, how do you tell a cynic to come and see when there is nothing physical left to look at? The answer is the most terrifying reality of the New Testament. When the physical body of Jesus ascends into the clouds, the apologetic strategy of the movement does not change. The address changes. You and I become the physical address. When the Apostle Paul traveled across the Mediterranean world, he did not set up debate stages in Roman amphitheaters to argue philosophy with Stoic scholars. He established small, breathing communities in hostile, brutal cities, and he looked those people in the eye and called them the body of Christ. The body of Christ is not a poetic metaphor. It is a terrifying, literal assignment. When a modern cynic, sitting under their own proverbial fig tree, demands proof, we cannot point to a rabbi standing in the river mud. We have to point to our own dinner tables. We read the New Testament as if it is a textbook of arguments waiting to be memorized and deployed. A script for, intellectually, we have to point to our own scars, our own bank accounts, and our own radically unnatural forgiveness. The ultimate defense of the faith is the warm, heavy presence of a community that loves its enemies and cares for the invisible people shivering on the margins of society. The Roman Empire did not convert because pagans lost intellectual arguments to Christians. The Roman world was dismantled because pagans watched Christians take in abandoned infants, left to freeze on the trash heaps. They watched Christians stay in plague-ridden cities, breathing the sick air, to nurse the dying, while the pagan priests and wealthy politicians fled. They looked at a group of people living in impossible, tactile reality, and they were caught in the gravity. This is exactly why our modern obsession with winning internet arguments feels so entirely hollow. You cannot say "come and see" to a stranger in a digital comments section. There is no physical reality to step into. A phone screen emitting cold blue light at midnight does not bleed. It does not weep. And it does not break warm. Crusty bread in a living room while the rain beats against the windows. It only transmits information. The kingdom of heaven is not an information transfer. It is an incarnation. If the only defense of the faith is the way believers actually live, then the stakes of your daily life are infinitely higher than your ability to memorize, dismantling a hostile world. But if you look closer at the actual moments when the movement expands, at what people actually say, historical data, when your neighbor is drowning in grief, you do not hand them a printed pamphlet on the theology of suffering. You sit with them in the quiet, heavy dark of their living room. You let the silence stretch out, and you become the proximity they desperately need. The cynic does not need your pristine logic. The cynic needs to see a life that cannot be explained by natural causes. But to fully grasp the weight of this calling, you have to pull back and look at the entire thread at once. Because when you stack these moments side by side, from the river to the empty tomb, you realize exactly what you are inviting people into. Two disciples asked a hesitant question on a riverbank, and a rabbi invited them to walk into his life. A cynic mocked a backwater village from the shade of a fig tree, and a friend answered with an address instead of an argument. An outcast left her heavy ceramic jar in the Samaritan dirt, and an entire hostile town walked out to the well. An angel pointed to a cold limestone slab. In the early morning, dark and grieving women found the empirical proof of folded linen. An apostle walked into brutal Mediterranean cities and built breathing communities instead of debate stages. When they invite someone into this reality, you start to see something the debate club reading completely misses. The kingdom of God is not a syllogism. A pagan empire demanded philosophical proof from a dying movement and watched believers nurse the sick in plague-ridden streets. And a modern skeptic sits under their own digital fig tree and waits to see if our dinner tables actually match our theology. Same three words. Same impossible invitation. But here is the part I keep coming back to. The sheer relief of Philip's surrender. He is staring at a man who knows the scriptures better than he does. A man armed with geography and bitter sarcasm. And Philip simply refuses to pick up the intellectual gauntlet. He doesn't try to prove he is right. He doesn't construct a timeline. He just points down the dusty road and bets everything on the gravity of Jesus. If you are in a season where you feel crushed by the pressure to perfectly defend your faith to a skeptical child, or if you are exhausted from trying to win arguments in the comment sections of a hostile world, the text is offering you permission to lay the heavy armor down. You do not have to out-argue the cynic. You do not need a law degree to explain the resurrection. You just have to stay close to the rabbi. To be proven, it is an atmosphere to be entered. To feel the weight of this story, you have to look at the Greek and let your own transformed life become the evidence they cannot ignore. If this lifted a weight off your shoulders, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted by the pressure to constantly debate their faith. And please, pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once asked you to win a courtroom battle give you the courage to live a life so profoundly beautiful that the world has no choice but to come and see. Words behind this phrase. You have to strip away centuries of defensive tactics and look at how Jesus, and then his followers, actually answered. They have just decided to follow. The sun is dropping low in the sky. John's Gospel specifically notes it is about 4 p.m. Doubt when it was staring them right in the face. Because when you do, it dismantles everything we have been taught about how to explain our faith to the people we love. The pattern starts with those two men in the late afternoon sun, but it is forged into something entirely different 2 days later. When a man named Philip runs into a brick wall of pure, unfiltered skepticism, look at how we defend belief today. We debate in comment sections. We memorize historical proofs. We assemble archaeological evidence. We try to argue people into the kingdom. We treat truth like a math problem. We think if we just show the math, the skeptic will submit. But human beings are not calculators. Arguments create defenses. Debates create walls. When you argue with a cynic, you step into their courtroom. You agree to play by their rules. You validate their premise that God is a suspect on trial, waiting for a verdict from a human jury. Jesus refuses the courtroom. He refuses the debate stage. The first movement of his public ministry contains exactly 0 theology, 0 doctrinal statements, 0 demands for intellectual submission. 2 men ask a question. He gives them an invitation. He gives them his time. He gives them proximity. They spend the evening with him. They eat his bread. They hear his voice. They watch him breathe. The apologetic is his presence. The defense is his life. The Greeks built Athens on the argument, the 10th hour, and the air smells of river mud and crushed reeds. They do not have a theology yet. They do not have a doctrine. You stand on Mars Hill and you pitch your philosophy. You use logic. You use rhetoric. You parse definitions. But the Hebrew imagination works differently. In the Hebrew mind, truth is not an abstract idea you comprehend. Truth is a physical path you walk. It is something you touch with your hands. It is something you see with your own eyes. He bypasses their intellect and appeals directly to their senses. Come and see the dust on my sandals. Come and see the way I break bread. Come and see how I speak to the invisible people. Belief is not a logical deduction you surrender to. It is a gravity you get caught in. When John writes this gospel decades later, an old man remembering his youth, he remembers the exact hour, the 10th hour, 4 in the afternoon. You do not remember the exact hour of a theological lecture. You remember the exact hour your life broke open. The first invitation was simply to come close, to bridge the physical gap, to test the reality by standing inside it. But an invitation to curious seekers is easy. It requires no friction. It demands no risk. The real test of this pattern is whether it can survive a hostile witness. The real test is what happens when this exact same method crashes into a hardened cynic, a man sitting in the shade of a tree, armed with geography, armed with history, and armed with a bitter edge of the Trinity. They just have a pointing finger from John the Baptist, a pounding in their chests, and a sudden, quiet desperation. Philip runs to find his friend, Nathanael. Nathanael is sitting under a fig tree. The broad, thick leaves cast a heavy actor, cool shade against the baking heat of the Galilean afternoon. You can smell the sharp, green scent of the branches and the dry dust kicking up from the road. Nathanael is a man who knows his Torah. He knows the prophecies. He is a thinker, a scrutinizer, a man who does not trade in breathless rumors. Philip arrives, chest heaving, leaning into the shade. We have found him, the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael does not drop to his knees in awe. He sneers. Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? You have to understand the geography of this insult. Nazareth is not a fortress. It is not a center of rabbinic learning. It is an unpaved, agricultural hamlet of maybe 400 peasants clinging to a rocky hillside. It is a place the Roman Empire barely acknowledges. Nathanael is a man from Cana, a neighboring town just a few miles away. And this is local prejudice mixed with fierce theological certainty. He knows the prophet Micah points to Bethlehem. He knows the royal line of David belongs to Judea, not this backwater Galilean village. Nathanael throws down an intellectual gauntlet. He expects a debate. He expects Philip to start parsing the scrolls, to know if this man walking ahead of them is who they think he is. The rabbi stops. He turns around. He assumes Philip will try to explain away the geographical contradiction, offering a multi-layered defense of how a carpenter's son could possibly be the promised king of the cosmos. But Philip refuses to pick up the gauntlet. He doesn't argue the history. He doesn't debate the prophetic timeline. He doesn't even try to prove that he is right. Philip looks at the cynic sitting in the dirt, and he uses the exact same 3 words the rabbi used the day before. Come and see. It is a stunning concession of intellectual surrender. Philip essentially says, I cannot answer your geographical objection. I cannot explain the theology to your satisfaction. I cannot win this argument on paper. The defense of the truth is not a rhetorical victory. It is a physical encounter. He invites Nathanael to stand up, brush the dust off his robe, and step out of the shade. He bets everything on the radical assumption that if Nathanael simply gets close enough to the rabbi, the theological arguments will collapse under the weight of a living presence. But to understand why Philip's gamble actually works, you cannot just read the invitation in English. You have to look at the exact Greek words John writes down on the parchment. Because the grammar Philip uses does not just invite Nathanael, You can hear the dirt crunch under his leather sandals as he shifts his weight. "What are you looking for?" he asks. On a brief walk down the road, it demands a totally different way of existing in the world. Look closely at the ink recorded on the parchment in John 1:46. The phrase translated as, "come and see," is the Greek erchou kai ide. It appears so simple in English, almost like a throwaway transition, a polite suggestion to take a walk. But in the original Greek grammar, this is a collision of force. Both of these verbs are in the present imperative tense. They are not suggestions, they are commands. Erchou comes from the root erkomai. It means to make an active, profound movement from one sphere into another. It means to cross a threshold, to alter your physical reality by moving toward a specific center of gravity. Ide comes from the root ido. It does not mean to casually glance at something with your physical retinas. It means to perceive, to inspect, to examine something so intimately that the act of looking rewrites what you know to be true. If something about this shift from arguing to experiencing is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. They freeze. They don't ask him to explain the complexities of the Torah. They don't ask him to outline his eschatology. So Philip issues his imperative. He is not asking for 30 seconds of Nathanael's time. He is demanding a continuous, unbroken posture of movement and perception. Keep coming. Keep looking. Because faith is not an intellectual fortress, you defend. It is a living reality you step into. When you reduce your faith to a list of historical arguments, you make God an object to be studied. You put him under a microscope. You turn the creator of the cosmos into a lifeless theory to be debated on a whiteboard. But erchou kai demands the exact opposite. You do not study a burning bush. You take off your shoes. You do not debate a split sea. You walk through the water. You do not out-argue a skeptic. You invite them to look at the scars. Truth, in the biblical imagination, is not a set of propositions you can memorize. Truth is a person you must encounter. The only way to know if the bread is real is to taste it. The only way to know if the light is real is to open your eyes in the dark. Philip bets everything on the sheer, undeniable weight of Jesus' presence. And it works. Nathanael goes. He sees. And the cynic is shattered by a rabbi who saw him before he ever arrived. They ask for an address. Stalling for time. "Rabbi, where are you staying?" His response is exactly 3 words. "Come and see." But it is one thing for a respected, educated Jewish man to use this invitation on a friend. It is an entirely different thing when these exact same words are weaponized by someone who has no social standing, no theological training, and absolutely no right to be speaking at all. Because the next time this phrase echoes through the text, it is not spoken by a disciple. The sun burns straight down. It is noon in Samaria. The heat shimmers off the limestone well. A woman walks alone. The dust coats her ankles. The heavy ceramic jar cuts into her shoulder. She comes at noon to avoid the stares. She comes at noon to avoid the whispers. The other women draw water in the cool morning air. She draws water in the punishing heat. She is isolated. She is ostracized. She is 5 husbands deep into a life that has left her hollow. A Jewish man sits by the well. He asks for a drink. The cultural boundaries shatter. He speaks to her. He sees her. He names her past without throwing a single stone at her present. He offers living water. She tries to start a theological debate about mountains and temples, retreating into intellectual arguments to protect her exposed heart. He bypasses the debate. He reveals exactly who he is. She drops the water jar. The clay hits the dirt. You hear those 3 words. And you might think it is just a polite, ancient invitation. A simple, practical direction to a physical location. The thud rings out in the quiet heat. She does not carefully pack her belongings. She leaves the very vessel she came to fill. She runs back into the city. She runs to the men who despise her. She runs to the society that exiled her. She bursts into the streets with her chest heaving and her voice breaking. And she does not deliver a systematic theology. She does not quote the prophets. She does not construct a 5-point argument for his messianic identity. She does not demand that they agree with a doctrinal statement. She uses the exact same strategy Philip used. Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. She uses the plural variant of the exact same verbs. Deute idete. Come and see. She is not constructing an argument. She is offering an encounter. She has no training. She has no credentials. She has a reputation that makes people cross the street. But she has the one thing Philip had. She has proximity. She does not have the answers to their complex theological questions. She only has a finger pointing back to the well. Her defense is not a polished sermon. It is her own exposed, transformed life. The sheer shock of her joy is the only proof she offers. The town empties out. The men walk through the fields. The skeptics leave their tables. The merchants leave their stalls.